Childhood and Growing Up. This is for B.Ed first year, exclusively for Pondicherry University, explained by Dr. Shubha, Vasavi College of Education, Pondicherry. Now this is Unit 10, Transfer of Learning and Developing Socio-Assessments Ability. Under this, we will be learning about transfer of learning, its types, meaning of socio-assessments, social assessment in different context, social assessment tools like biography, stories, observation, journal, which is portfolio, measures in group relation, genograms and echo maps. Transfer of learning, its types. The word transfer is used to describe the effects of past learning upon present acquisition. In the outside world, how well and how rapidly we learn anything depends to a large extent upon the kinds and amount of things we have learned previously. So, present learning is based on the past learning experiences. In simple way, transfer may be defined as the partial or total application or carryover knowledge, skills, habits, attitudes from one situation to another situation. This is called transfer of learning, like transfer of heat. So in the way, transfer of learning. So a teacher and a learner, now the teacher is teaching through a process. Now through the process, now what is the process? A different skills and strategy. So through different skills and strategy, from the teacher, the learning gets transferred to the learner. So from one situation to another situation. This can happen between two people, or this can happen between a self also. So I can also learn something. A transfer of learning may happen within me. But to have a transfer of learning, there should be two things. There should be two different levels, maybe within the self or between two people. Only if there are two levels, there can be a transfer. If the levels are the same, then there won't be any transfer. Hence, carryover of skills of one learning to other learning is transfer of training or learning. Such transfer occurs when learning of one set of material influences the learning of another set of material later. For example, a person who knows to drive a cycle can drive a moped, and who knows to drive a moped can easily learn to drive a scooter, and he can drive a car also, because by now he will be knowing about the rules of the roads and all that, where to turn and all that. So it will be easy. So the transfer of learning may be positive and it will be easy. Now there are three types of transfer of learning. Now the positive transfer. When learning in one situation facilitates the learning in another situation, it is known as positive transfer. So skills in playing violin facilitate the learning to play piano. Like driving a scooter will help you to drive a car. Driving a bicycle will help you to drive a moped. So this is a positive transfer. And also, if you are good at maths, then you will be naturally good at physics. So maths and physics are correlated subjects, and there will be a positive transfer. Negative transfer. Now here, learning knowledge in maths, knowledge in Tamil. So do you think that will be a relation? And climbing a tree and driving a moped, do you think there is a transfer? No. So when learning of one task makes the learning of another task harder, it is known as negative transfer. So speaking Telugu hinders the learning of Malayalam. A neutral transfer. When learning of one activity will not facilitate and will not hinder, will not hamper the learning of another task. So it's a case of neutral transfer. Now this is also called zero transfer of knowledge. Knowledge of history in one way affects learning of driving a car or a scooter. In no way it affects. So this is a neutral transfer. There are two important modern theories which explain the transfer of learning. Theory of identical elements. Now this was developed by Thorndike. According to him, most of the transfer occurs from one situation to another situation in which there are similar or identical elements. Carrying over from one situation to another is roughly proportional to the degree of resemblance. How much it is resembling, only that much will be carried over. The degree of transfer increases as the similarity increases. So learning to ride a moped is easy after learning to ride a bicycle. So Thorndike was convinced that the method used in guiding a people's learning activities had a great effect upon the degree of transferability of his learning. That is, there should be similar elements like in maths and physics. So it's similar. Physics and chemistry, they're similar. So if the similarity increases, the transfer of learning will also increase. So this is called theory of identical or similarity elements. The second theory is theory of generalization of experience. Now this theory was developed by Charles Judd. Theory of generalization assumes that what is learnt in task A transfers to task B, because in studying A, the learner develops a general principle which applies in part or completely in both A and B. Maybe the learning of one thing like type A, so partly or fully, totally, it helps in learning the other type B. Experiences, habits, knowledge gained in one situation help us to the extent to which it can be generalized and applied to another situation. So experience in attending a marriage will help you how to behave in another party. So if at all you are attending a marriage family function with your parents, so that experience will help you when you go and attend a party with your friends or with higher officials. Now generalization consists of perceiving and understanding what's common to a number of situations. The ability of individuals to generalize knowledge varies with the degree of their intelligence. Now meaning of socio-assessments, and let's see about socio-assessment tool also. Now what is the socio-assessment? The process in which objective and subjective information are used to identify high priority problems or assets that affect the common good. Social assessment should be designed to take these realities into account. The type of assessment focuses on social and emotional dynamics that are important in understanding an individual's growth and difficulties that may be present. It's often referred to as personality assessment. So socio-assessment, how a person is mingling in the society, and what are the way in which you can assess whether the person has been successfully relating with the society. That's what we are going to learn about. Now why do we need this social assessment? Not only social assessment, emotional and mental health assessment also. So we need to understand about a child or a young person. If at all they have sleeping difficulties, making friends, difficulty in making friends, or mood swings, or display a low mood. So we need to understand what is happening with him, why he is not successfully mingling in the society. And we need to assess his success with the social communication. So why children are wetting the bed beyond the age of 6 years old? They refuse to go to school, addicted to technology. Now these days is a very big, it's a big problem. Having low self-esteem, displaying a risk-taking and dangerous behavior. So these things, if at all we need to study, we need to assess their social behavior. Now what are the benefits of the social assessments? So we can recommend techniques and strategies to improve their social, emotional, mental health and their strengths. working towards preventing future problems because we are identifying at an early age and we are intervening with the techniques, improved friendships following interventions, introduction of support strategies, and techniques specific to individuals' socio needs. Now, the tools to assess the socio assessment: biographies, stories, observation, journal, etc. Now, what is this biography? Bio means life, graphy means I write. So, biography is a written account of someone else's life. So, it contains lots of details about a person from his birth to the death and is often about someone famous. Written in the third person. So, you need to write about, for example, during the Second World War, Annie. So, we are writing a biography of Annie Frank, hid for 2 years in an attic. So, life story of an individual written by another person. The writer must carry out lots of research because you cannot perceive about that person and you cannot imagine how the person felt and write a biography of that person. You need to be in detail because it should not it should not deceive the other person, deceive the public. You need to give the truth, the fact about the person whom you are writing. Biographies are a brilliant way to learn more about interesting or famous people. Now, biography is written about a person by some other person. Now, what is this? Autobiography. Auto means self, life, printed or written. So, if I am writing about myself, it is autobiography. So, biography and autobiography. This is different. Now, what is a story? A story is the telling of an event. It can be true or it can be fictional also, in a way that the listener experiences or learns something just by the fact that he heard the story. It's a means of transferring information, experience, attitude, or the point of view. And every story will have a listener and a teller. Stories are not just facts. They contain facts and feelings and senses and colors and metaphors and associations. So, when you tell a story, the other person should actually imagine, and if at all he is creative, and if you are also creative, then they should visualize the story. They revolve around human experiences, actions, events, and conflicts. Their dynamic, robust way in which human beings communicate meaning and construct understanding. So, this is. Now, next comes stories. Now, all stories will have this 4 elements. The structure. Structure is what you tell. And the story will have some characters, some plot, and the language and style. The meaning, the way you tell it. Okay. So, the text, the language and style will be the text. So, the next socio-assessment technique is observation. Now, what is observation? This is an indirect approach to study the mental processes of others through observing their external behavior. So, if someone is frowning, howling, grinds his teeth, closes his fists, then you will say the person is angry because the external signs are telling about his behavior. We observe so many things in nature. We also observe the action and behavior of others. And we form our own notions about these persons by looking at their behavior, and we observe. We took, whatever they exhibit, their behavior, their external behavior, we take it and we frame an image about themselves. We look at other person, listen to their talks, and try to infer what they mean. So, we try to infer the characteristics, their motivations, feelings, and intentions of others on the basis of these observations. Now, observations can be in so many ways, and we will be learning in. Now, let's see the flow chart. So, observation. So, the first thing is structure. So, in observation, it can either be structured observation or unstructured observation. Now, what do you mean by this? Structured observation means you are taking the entire class to the playground. You are asking the entire class to play. So this is a structured observation. Unstructured means what? Like after the school, you just observe the students as they play and as they wander around. Means you are not telling them to assemble somewhere. You are just watching them after the school when they are not given any command. So you give a command, you make a place and you assemble everybody, then you observe. So it is structured and unstructured. So in an observation you have to have a structure. And next is participation. Now you can either participate. Participant observation means you also participate, or you are a non-participant observer. That is, without actually mingling with the person, you can stand aloof and you can observe. So this is non-participant observation. Now setting and environment. The setting can be a natural setting or it can be an artificial contrived setting. So in a contrived setting also you can observe. Now the next is mode of administration. How do you observe them? Personally, you can observe them personally or mechanical. That is inbuilt cameras. Through camera you can take pictures and then you can observe them. Or audit also, and content analysis. You can just gather all the content, then you can analyze and you can observe that. So the other thing is concealment, disguised and undisguised. Now what do you mean by concealment, disguised and undisguised? Disguised means like they know that you are observing. Okay, so when you tell them, see, I am going to observe, means it is disguised. When you don't tell them that you are observing, you are simply watching them and you are taking the notes. It is undisguised. So concealment. So you can have concealed, disguised observation, undisguised, and the mode of administration can be many. Now you can tell us, like if at all we have a mechanical observation, then people will act so good. Like if we have cameras in the school, then children will behave very well. But the psychologists are telling the other way. Maybe for 10 minutes they will understand that there is camera. But after 10 minutes or 20 minutes they will forget that there is camera and they will start acting because their own true behavior will come out. Means you cannot conceal yourself or contain yourself more than 20 minutes. So even if there is camera, there is no camera, your own self, your true self, you will definitely exhibit. Now the other tool, assessment tool, is portfolio. Now portfolio or a journal we can call. This is a collection of student school work collected over a specific period of the school year that shows student growth and development. Useful for special needs children who cannot accomplish difficult tasks. A working portfolio, for example, homework assignments, journal entries, in-class writing assignments, and professional articles. Now these days, the CBSE system is having internal marks, and one is portfolio. You have to create a portfolio, even teacher and student also. So the teacher can give at every interval, the teacher can give any topic and ask the students to write, or any project and ask the students to do. Then the teacher can collect each one's project and keep it. Then towards the end of the year, it can be shown to the parents or it can be exhibited. So portfolio is a collection of work, a different period of time the teacher may collect and keep it ready.